Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Over the last 48 hours, a lot of buzz for this Michigan program coming out of the recruiting trail. Want to take a deep dive into some of my favorite players that are not only trending to Michigan, but will be on campus for Michigan during the next couple of days. Fired up to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to the Michigan fans. Many of you guys know that I'm a massive Michigan fan. I love talking this program on the recruiting trail. The amount of support the Michigan fans have shown the boys over the last couple of weeks, that stuff means the absolute world. Can't thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. It's going to be a very busy next couple of weeks and months, breaking down commitments. And then more importantly, the Michigan fan, you guys are very engaged on the recruiting trail. I don't get to have these conversations in my day-to-day life. The amount of feedback, the amount of input you guys throw in the comment section, it's been awesome to chop it up with you guys. Would love to hear some of your favorite prospects that you would like to see Michigan go out and get. And without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start on the defensive line where you look at Coach Lou Esposito. And when he took this job at Michigan, his evaluations were great at Western Michigan. His player development was top-notch. Multiple guys he coached on the defensive line are now going to be playing in the NFL. We didn't have any question marks about his evals, about his talent identification or player development. I think the big question we had with Lou Esposito is, can he come to this Michigan program and recruit against Ohio State, Penn State for some of these top prospects across the country? We're quickly seemingly getting an answer for that, right? Nathaniel Marshall, top 100 national prospect, committing to Michigan on the defensive line. Then you take a look at some of the players that Michigan's trending for. I think that has to fire you up if you're a Michigan fan, because we know Lou Esposito can develop big bodies. We didn't necessarily know if he could recruit the top end big bodies. We're getting that answer. The first name I want to talk about, Maxwell Roy, four-star defensive lineman from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, for those who've listened for the last couple of months, you guys know how big of a fan I am of wrestlers on the defensive line. Maxwell Roy, heavyweight wrestler, placed sixth place in the state of Pennsylvania. Many of you guys probably not familiar with wrestling in the state of Pennsylvania. That's probably the best that you can find wrestling. And to finish sixth place in the state, an extremely impressive placement. Mason Graham was a former wrestler too. We see wrestling translate extremely well to defensive line play. And you get into Maxwell Roy's film and say, you can tell this kid is a very, very high-level wrestler. His ability to get off blocks, exceptional. And you look at what makes Mason Graham so special for Michigan over the last couple of years, his ability to use his hands and fight off blocks and shed blocks. You look at Maxwell Roy, plays with extremely good leverage, knows how to get off blocks, and is extremely fluid and twitchy athlete for a 275-pound body. And you take a look at Maxwell Roy, probably gets up to 300 pounds as he gets to this Michigan program, but a guy that, I mean, when you turn on the film, this is a big functional athlete that knows how to use his hands and get off blocks. Reminds you a lot of a guy like Mason Graham. I would love to see Maxwell Roy come to Michigan, and you look at Maxwell Roy, seems like he's trending to Michigan. He's currently on campus for an unofficial visit. We'll be visiting Michigan officially at the end of June. Big fan of Maxwell Roy, probably my favorite prospect that we're going to be talking about. The next one I want to talk about is four-star defensive lineman Jalen Williams, who is another really interesting cat. And you look at Jalen Williams, probably the best athlete on the defensive line that we're going to be talking about, probably a little bit more of a raw prospect, 6'6", 265. You see him play off the edge. You see him play at the three tech. He's an elite athlete for this big of a body. And you see him use his raw athleticism and his power to win a lot at the high school level. Now, there's some development that needs to take place as he would enroll at Michigan. You kind of trust Lou Esposito to get the best out of this kid. I think this is probably the highest upside defensive lineman that currently is on Michigan's board. And you look at Jalen Williams, was supposed to take an official visit to Miami this weekend, canceled that official visit, now going to be visiting Michigan. You're seeing some crystal balls coming for a guy like Jalen Williams. I would love to see him commit to Michigan, break down his film with you guys, because Jalen Williams is a very exciting defensive line prospect. And The last one on the defensive line that I quickly want to talk about is another four-star edge rusher in Marion Dye, who really interesting body at 6'5", 270. He plays a lot of stand-up linebacker. You'll see him even play off-ball linebacker at times. They move him all around the field. And what stands out to me about Marion Dye is, one, his ability to close in on quarterbacks is extremely impressive. This is a guy that you look at Michigan's defense, sometimes asking the edge rushers to play off the ball, drop down in the flat, operate in space. That's probably where Marion Dye really excels. This is a heavy-handed edge rusher that can use the power in his hands to get after quarterbacks, but also an edge rusher that you can use in a lot of different ways. You can ask him to operate in space. And I think that versatility in the Wink Martindale defense, where you're asking your edge rushers to do a lot of different things, I think this one certainly makes a lot of sense. This one sounds like it's going to be coming down to Ohio State and Michigan for his commitment. Another big-time Midwest prospect on the defensive line. We'll see if Lou Esposito can get that one done. We'll be on Michigan's campus this weekend. And pivoting from the defensive line, where it seems like Michigan's going in the right direction awfully quickly, I want to talk about two running backs. And the first one I want to talk about is four-star running back Jordan Davison from Mater Dei. Kind of an interesting recruitment for Jordan Davison, where he was heavily leaning Ohio State when Tony Alford was at Ohio State. And then Tony Alford obviously takes a job at Michigan. Now Michigan suddenly gets in this recruitment. And I think the two other schools that Michigan is primarily battling with is Ohio State and Texas. And you look at Texas, they took two running backs in this 2025 class already. I would be very surprised if they take a third. You look at Ohio State, they just landed a four-star running back in Bo Jackson from Cleveland, Ohio last night. They're trending for another one in Isaiah West, who's from Pennsylvania. It sounds like Texas and Ohio State might not be taking Jordan Davison. And I think this gives Michigan an elite opportunity to go grab one of the more talented running backs across the country. You look at Jordan Davison, and we kind of talked about him in the past. He's a box checker, right? At 6 foot, 225 pounds, he might not have the long speed that you see some other Michigan running backs come out of high school with. Runs the rock extremely hard, runs with low pads, has a thick lower half. And I think what really stands out to me about Jordan Davison is, although maybe not the fastest in a straight line, the short area quickness, the ability to make people miss in the phone booth, get in and out of his cuts, that is extremely impressive for someone who's 225 pounds. I think this is a massive opportunity for Michigan to get into one of the more talented running backs that we see in the country. And the last one I want to talk about, and another really intriguing guy, Shakai Mills-Knight, his running style reminds me of Kalel Mullings. It is no nonsense. It's downhill. He's 6'1". He's 220 pounds, extremely physically imposing as a running back. And if you're Michigan, he's currently on campus on an unofficial visit right now. I think you're showing him Kalel Mullings film and talk about some of those inside schemes that we just let Kalel Mullings get downhill, run the rock physically. That's Shakai Mills-Knight. And I think he fits exactly what Michigan wants to do in that rushing attack, where it's bully ball. That's how Michigan's won back-to-back Big Ten championships. It's how we are defending national champions. You take a look at fit, and we talk a lot about this with Michigan on the recruiting trail. They don't always get the guys that are rated the highest according to 24/7 Sports. They get the guys that they know they can develop, but I think more importantly, they get the guys that fit what Michigan wants to do on both sides of the football. Shakai Mills-Knight, in terms of fitting how Michigan wants to run the rock, I think this is a perfect fit. And you look at Michigan, it's a big-time official visit weekend. We'll probably talk about some other names later in the week that'll be on campus for Michigan. Michigan fans, it's about time to get fired up. And it's been kind of a slow start to this 2025 class, which when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, Michigan kind of completely replaced their coaching staff throughout the months of January, February, and in some cases into the month of March. And so you look at Michigan, yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a slower start because you have to reconnect with a lot of relationships, formulate a lot of relationships that you kind of lost when your coaching staff left. You're seeing Michigan do that. You're seeing them get these guys on campus. I think it's setting up to be a really exciting month of June and July. A lot of commitments to break down. The Michigan fans, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Not many fan bases more in touch on the recruiting trail than you guys. I appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.